You know, we all say it. A promise is a promise. It's the foundation of how we trust each other. But what happens when that trust gets shattered in a massive business deal and you realize there's no signed contract to back you up? Well, we're going to dive into a landmark case that completely turned our understanding of legal fairness on its head. So, this is the big question, right? For the longest time, the answer was a pretty harsh, simple no. But what if you'd already bet your entire business on that promise? This is the story of the case that dared to challenge that very idea. You see, traditionally, the law saw things in black and white. A simple promise, that was about honor, sure, but it wasn't the law's business. If you wanted the courts to have your back, you needed a formal contract, ink on paper, signed and sealed. Otherwise, well, you were completely on your own. But then, along came a deal that was going to push this rigid rule to its absolute breaking point. It involved a family business on one side, a corporate giant on the other, and a very valuable piece of land right in the middle of it all. Okay, so let's meet our players. First, you've got the Mahers, a family that owned a commercial property. And on the other side, Walton's Stores, a huge retailer. The plan seemed simple enough. Walton's wanted to lease the Mahers' property. But, and this is a huge but, there was one condition. The Mahers had to totally demolish their old building and build a brand new one, designed exactly to Walton's very specific plan. So let's look at how this all unfolded. Negotiations kick off, everything seems to be going great. The Mahers' lawyer even tells Walton's, hey, we're starting the demolition, because they figured the final contract was just a formality at this point. So the bulldozers roll in, but here's the kicker. Just a little while later, Walton secretly gets cold feet. They tell their own lawyers to go slow on the deal. But did they tell the Mahers? Nope, not a single word, all while the Mahers are tearing their building down and spending a fortune. And this number, 40%, really shows you the scale of the problem. By the time Waltons finally broke their silence, this brand new, custom-built structure was nearly halfway done. This wasn't just a blueprint anymore. This was concrete and steel, all built on the foundation of a promise they thought was solid. So after months of the Mahers doing all this expensive work and hearing nothing but radio silence from Walton's, the other shoe finally dropped. And that was it. Just a cold, simple message. After all the talk, all the plans, the demolition, the construction, Walton's just walked away. And remember, no contract was ever actually signed. Legally speaking, the Mahers were just stranded. They had poured everything into this project based on a promise. But under the old rules, without that signature, they had no case. They were facing total financial ruin because of what was basically a handshake deal. So this case works its way all the way up to the High Court of Australia, and the judges there found themselves in a real bind. Were they going to stick to the strict letter of the law, or were they going to find a way to deliver a just result? I mean, this was the question, wasn't it? Is the law just a rigid set of rules you have to follow no matter what? Or is its real purpose to prevent a terrible injustice? For everyone watching this case, it really felt like the idea of fairness itself was on trial. And the court, well, they found their answer in an old legal idea. But the way they used it was totally revolutionary. They didn't just use it to defend a principle, they used it to go on the attack. The principle is called promissory estoppel. Now that sounds complicated, but let's break it down. Promissory is about a promise, and estoppel is just a legal way of saying you're stopped from doing something. So put it together and it literally stops someone from backing out of a promise if the other person has already relied on it and would get hurt. And this is the real game changer. For years, promissory estoppel was only a shield. You could only use it to defend yourself if somebody was already suing you. But in this case, the court forged it into a sword. It gave the mayors the power to start a lawsuit, to create a legal claim, where before there was absolutely nothing. So to make sure this didn't get out of hand, the court laid out this really clear 6-point test. Let's just run through it real quick. Did the Mahers assume a deal was happening? Yes. Did Walton's encourage that assumption? Yes. Did the Mahers act on it? Oh, absolutely. Did Walton's know they were acting on it? For sure. Would the Mahers suffer if the promise was broken? Massively. And here's the final crucial piece. Did Walton's do anything to stop them? Their silence was the devastating answer. You see, the heart of the matter wasn't just the broken promise. The court called it Walton's unconscionable conduct. It was just fundamentally unfair for Walton's to stand by silently, watching the Mahers spend all this money on a project, all based on an agreement they knew they were about to break. So the Mahers won, but the ripple effects of this one decision went so much further than just their case. It really sent a shockwave through the worlds of law and business. And you can see here, the legacy was just enormous. We're talking a high impact on contract law, a huge change to how business negotiations work, and it really pushed this idea of fairness to the forefront, proving that it can, in some pretty special cases, trump rigid rules. So the big takeaway is this. The case established a powerful idea that silence can have very real consequences. You can't just stand by and watch someone ruin themselves based on a promise you made and then get away with it just because a final piece of paper wasn't signed. And that leaves us with a really fascinating question for today, doesn't it? I mean, in our world of deals being made in a flurry of emails and text messages, the principles from this old case are probably more important than ever. It really makes you think, when does a digital handshake become a promise you can't break? And at what point does your silence become a choice you're going to be held accountable for?